Okay, so here we go. Factoring to solve quadratic equations. So the one thing we use to solve factoring quadratics is the zero product property. Guys, thank you. So zero product property, anything multiplied to zero becomes zero. The idea is if I am multiplying two things and getting zero, then one or the other or both has to be zero. Because the only way to get zero for multiplication is having zero be one of the numbers. So if I have two things, A and B, and I'm multiplying them to get zero, that means either A has to be zero or B has to be zero. What that means for us in solving our quadratics by factoring. What we have is, if we factor, and we have two factors, x plus 1 times x minus 3 equaling 0, that means either the first factor, x plus 1, has to be 0, or x minus 3 has to be 0. One of the two factors has to be 0. So we take the first factor, set it equal to 0, and solve. Subtract 1 from both sides, x equals negative 1. Okay. Set the other factor, x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides, x equals 3. Those are my answers. Most of the time when you have quadratics, and pretty much every time when you're solving by factoring, you will have two answers. Set the first factor equal to 0, set the factor equal to 0, solve each of those equations. Figure out what x is. Okay? That's how you do it. You factor the quadratic. So you get the two factors. Take the first factor equal to 0, solve it. Take the second factor equal to 0, solve it. X are those two numbers. The easiest way to solve a quadratic equation. We will learn other methods. This is the easiest way to do it. If you can factor quadratics, it goes like that. And this is part of the reason why I say factoring is so important, because it makes this really easy. Okay. So the first two problems, they're already in factored form. You've got quadratics that have already been factored. The zero product property says that I take the first one, 4x plus 1, set that equal to 0, and take the second factor, x minus 2, equal to 0, and I solve each of those individually. So on the first one, I subtract 1 from each side, and I get 4x equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals negative 1/4, and that's one answer. And then I do the same thing with the second one. X minus 2 equals 0. I add 2 to both sides. X equals 2. And that's how you do that. Set each factor equal to 0. Solve for x, solve for x. So those are your answers. Do the second one. Okay. Shouldn't take too long to do, because like I said, it's already in factored form. So the first step, take the first factor, 2x plus 3, set it equal to 0. Take it the second factor, x minus 4, set it equal to 0. Solve for x. Subtract 3, and I get 2x equals negative 3. Divide by 2, x equals negative 3 halves. And then on the second one, this is one step, add 4 to both sides, x equals 4. Okay? Really easy to do. Factored form, set each factor equal to 0, solve for x. A couple of steps. Now we get to this one. Okay, solve by factoring. My first step is to factor. So that's my first step. So set up your big X. I have 15 on the top, 8 on the bottom. two numbers that multiply to give me 15 and add to give me 8? 5 and 3. So that means when I factor this, I get x plus 5, x plus 3 equal to 0. That's my first step. Factor them. And now I do what I just got done doing. Set each factor equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. And then solve for x. Subtract 5. X equals negative 5. Subtract 3. X equals negative 3. Easy peasy. Questions? I love solving by factoring. It's to me, it's really easy. But you have to be able to factor. Okay. Okay, problem number 3. Here's a problem. There's problem number 3 cannot be factored as it stands. And solving by factoring only works if it's equal to 0. This is not equal to 0. I need to have everything equal to 0 or factoring doesn't work. So my first step in this one is to actually set it equal to 0. Subtract 18 from both sides. Subtract 18, subtract 18. So I get 4x squared minus 21x minus 18 equals 0. So your first step is set it equal to 0. Okay. If it's already equal to 0, great. You don't have to do that. It's already done. The previous problem was already equal to 0. Great, it was already done. Now I'm doing what I did on the previous one. Factor. Okay. 4 times 18. 4 times 8 is 32. So that would be negative 72. And this is negative 21. Right? Yeah, negative 8. 40 plus 30, yeah, 72. Two numbers that multiply to give me 72 that subtract to give me 21. Whew, that's not a pretty one. 1 and 72. Nope. 2 and 36. Nope. 3 goes into 72. 24 times. 3 and 24. Right? 3 times 24 is 72. 24 minus 3 gives me 21. So I have 24 and 3. And this is one is negative because that's negative down there. Now I have a 4 in front. So what do I have to do next? I have to put both of these over 4. Over 4, over 4, over 4. See, I can do it right. Negative 24 over 4 gives me negative 6. That's what this reduces down into. So those are my two factors, negative 6 and 3 over 4. So that means I have 4x plus 3 times x minus 6 is equal to 0. Factoring on that one was kind of a pain, but once you get it factored, there you go. Now, from here, set each one equal to 0. 4x plus 3 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. This one's easy. Add 6 to both sides. Do the easy one first. X equals 6. The other one's harder, but it's not that much harder. Subtract 3 from both sides. 4x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 4. X equals negative 3 fourths. What? Question?
have a question.